I want to speak to your history in the SEALs a little bit. And as a past military member, I'm curious first and foremost about why SEALs make such good leaders. So you've got yourself as the CEO of an awesome company, Born Primitive, but you've got other massive figures in this space now, like Jocko Willink, for example, known for leadership. What do you think makes SEALs special? What do you think makes them great leaders?
Well, I appreciate the compliment. I'm not sure I'm worthy of that, but if we're going to make the assumption that I am, I think one thing that we learn through the process of becoming a SEAL and just being in the SEAL teams is, you're taught how to lead, but first you're taught how to follow. You know what I mean? And that's a huge part of it. Obviously in the military, it's very structured. There's a very clear chain of command. You know exactly where you stand in the pecking order. So for most of your time, you are actually, answering to someone, even at the highest level, until you get to the top, you have a boss. So I think it's that balance of learning, when to lead when you're in charge of your guys, whether it's as small as a fire team or a squad or a platoon or a troop as it gets bigger and bigger. While also, being a good follower and being a good sled dog and pulling your weight for the team. And I just think, the culture that is instilled, it's pretty cutthroat, man. In a really good way, though. There is a standard that's held, and there's incredible amount of peer pressure that if you don't uphold the standard, pardon my French, but you can get the fuck out, right? If you're going to show up to work and you're not fit, you don't have your gear squared away, you don't have the right mindset, then you don't belong, and you will be outcasted quickly by your peers. In the civilian workplace, that wouldn't fly. You can't.
Right.
But it's like the Lord of the Flies, man. Particularly going through the training buds, it is absolutely Lord of the Flies. Anything goes. They're taking classes from 200 plus guys down to in my case we had 11 originals. We graduated 26 by the end of it. So like they thin the herd real quick. So it kind of has to be that way. But once you get into a unit, the standard that the guys above you hold you to, they're like the gatekeepers of the standard. And that just creates an incredible culture. And in some cases, you're almost fearful that, you don't want to be seen as the guy that's not fit or not reliable or not competent with his weapon, whatever that is. So you put in the extra work to make sure that, all right, I want, when they look across the table, I want them to know me as a reliable guy that's putting in the work. So I just think being a part of that culture helps you apply that to other things. Now, I will say there's a drawback to it, because one of the things I had to learn once I became full-time CEO and I wasn't in the military anymore is like, you have to conform a little bit to the civilian population and not run it like it's a SEAL platoon, because the expectation is a little different. You have people that have different personalities, whereas in the teams, it's pretty much, we're all kind of wired the same. So it's not a one size fits all. You can't hold them to the same kind of ridiculous standard that you held your teammates to, because this isn't, a life or death type thing. For us, we're selling apparel, right? Yeah, we're not, it doesn't have to be that intense. So I had to rewire some of those methods, but I think the underlying themes and principles still apply.
All right, friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We got a fresh new podcast for you every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, consider liking, subscribing, reviewing, and rating us on your podcast platform. It helps to spread this message of radical health. We'll see you next week.